I mostly read public domain books here on Glenn Reads Books to You, and they were written a long time ago, so they're usually racist, or sexist, or bigoted, but in there somewhere is a story, and that's why those stories are famous. Other times, I read works from independent authors, and they're delightfully not racist, but they might have adult language or adult situations, like, making sex. So that's your warning, but I'm sure you're grown up enough to handle it. Don't write to me complaining. Well, here I am, freshly back from my trip from Germany. I can finally relax after all the air. Oh, god damn it. Why are you here already? I just got back. I'm tired. I just had horrible flights with KLM that held us over in Amsterdam, wouldn't let us go home. We had to sleep in a hotel that's like made for college kids. And then I finally do get home, and then you're here. Fine. Welcome to the Glenn Reads. Ugh. See, I'm exhausted. Welcome to the Glenn Reads Books to You mansion. It's a fun little bit where I pretend to live in a mansion, not just recording in my basement. This is where I read the hottest public domain books and short stories. This week, we're going to read a little short story called A Pail of Air by Fritz Lieber. Want to hear about the author? Sure. Fritz Lieber, born December 24th, 1910, and died September 5th, 1992. Just missed his chance to see the beauty that was Kurt Cobain. American writer of fantasy, horror, and science fiction. He's also a poet, an actor in theater and films, playwright, and chessspert. That's what I like to say for chess expert, with writers such as Robert E. Howard, we've talked about, he's a racist pile of shit, and Michael Moorcock, who I've never read any of his stuff. I should probably learn a little bit more about the Moorcock. Lieber is one of the fathers of sword and sorcery and coined the term. You want to hear some fun facts I stole from Wikipedia, just like the previous thing I just said? Sure, it's all stolen from Wikipedia. Lieber married Jonquil Stevens on January 16, 1936. Their only child, philosopher and science fiction writer Justin Lieber, was born in 1938. Jonquil's death in 1969 precipitated Lieber's permanent relocation to San Francisco and exacerbated his long-standing alcoholism. After 12 years of fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous, he gradually regained sobriety, an effort impeded by barbiturate abuse. Over the next 2 decades, perhaps as a result of the substance abuse, Lieber seems to have suffered periods of penury in the 1970s. Harlan Ellison wrote of his anger at finding that the much-awarded Lieber had to write his novels on a manual typewriter propped up over the sink of his apartment. Mark Lidow wrote that when visiting Lieber as a fan in 1976, he was shocked to find him occupying one small room in a seedy San Francisco residence hotel. Its squalor relieved mainly by walls of books. Other reports suggest that Lieber preferred to live simply in the city, spending his money on dining, movies, travel. In the last years of his life, royalty checks from TSR, the makers of Dungeons & Dragons who had licensed the mythos of the Fafford and the Grey Mouser series, were enough in themselves to ensure that he lived comfortably. In 1977, he returned to his original form with a fantasy novel set in modern-day San Francisco, Our Lady of Darkness, which is about a writer of weird tales who must deal with the death of his wife and recovery from alcoholism. That's really specific. Okay, well, with that, why don't we go down to the library and read this adorable little story. Well, there you go. Why don't you get yourself settled? Yes, the Christmas tree is all dried up and ready to start on fire any minute now. It's always a little bit of a flip of the coin every time I turn the Christmas lights on. But, yes, and yeah, next to me is the, my suitcase. Because nothing makes you feel guilty that you're here when I just landed and finally got home. Do you feel anything inside that dark heart of yours? No? Fine. Let's start reading the story. The dark star passed, bringing with it eternal night and turning history into a credible myth in a single generation. This comes from like a Weird Tales magazine, so of course they put their own little stamp. I don't think that's actually part of the story. It's just some sort of weird advertisement right before you read it. Pa had sent me out to get an extra pail of air, and I had just about scooped it full, and most of the warmth had leaked from my fingers when I saw the thing. At first I thought it was a young lady. Yes, a beautiful young lady's face, all glowing in the dark and looking at me from the 5th floor of the opposite apartment, which hereabouts is the floor just above the white blanket of frozen air. I'd never seen a live young lady before. Gross. Except for the old magazines. Sis is just a kid. Gross, don't do that. And Ma is pretty sick. Nope, don't do that either. And miserable. It gave me such a start that I dropped the pail. Who wouldn't? Knowing everyone on Earth was dead except for Pa and Ma and Sis and you. Well, even at that, I don't suppose I should have been surprised. We all see things now and then. Ma has some pretty bad ones to judge from the way she bugs her eyes at nothing and just screams and screams and huddles back against the blankets, hanging around the nest. Pa says it's natural. We should react like that sometimes. When I recovered the pail and could look again at the opposite apartment, I got an idea of what Ma might be feeling at those times. For I saw it wasn't a young lady at all, but simply a light, a tiny light that moved stealthily from window to window, just as if one of the cruel little stars had come down out of the airless sky to investigate why the Earth had gone away from the sun. Oh, and maybe to hunt down something to torment or terrify. Now that the Earth didn't have the sun's protection, I tell you, the thought of it gives me the creeps. Oh, I just stood there shaking and almost froze my feet and did frost my helmet so solid on the inside that I couldn't have seen the light even if it came out from one of the windows to get me. And then I had the wit to go back inside. Pretty soon, I was feeling my familiar way through the 30 or so blankets and rugs Pa had got hung around to slow down the escape of air from the nest. Oh, and I wasn't quite so scared. I began to hear the tick-ticking of the clocks in the nest and knew I was getting back into air. Because there was no sound outside in the vacuum, of course, but my mind was still crawly and uneasy as I pushed through the last blankets. Pa's got them faced with aluminum foil to hold in the heat, and came into the nest. Well, let me tell you about the nest. How it's low and snug. Just room for the 4 of us and our things. Oh, the floor is covered with thick woolly rugs. 3 of the sides blankets, and the blanket's roofing it touched Pa's head. Oh, he tells me it's inside his much bigger room, but I've never seen the real walls or ceiling. Against one of the blanket walls is a big set of shelves with tools and books and other stuff. And on top of it, a whole row of clocks. Pa's very fussy about keeping them wound. Oh, he says that we must never forget time, and without a sun or a moon, that'd be easy to do. The 4th wall has blankets all over except round the fireplace, in which there was a fire that must never go out. Oh, it keeps us from freezing and does a lot more besides. One of us must always watch it. Some of the clocks are alarm, and we can use them to remind us. In the early days, there was only Ma and Pa to take turns. With Pa, I think of that when she gets difficult. But now, there's me to help. And Sis, too. It's Pa, who's the chief guardian of the fire. Though, I always think of him that way. A tall man sitting cross-legged, frowning anxiously at the fire, his lined face golden in its light, and every so often carefully placing on it a piece of coal from the big heap beside it. Pa tells me there used to be guardians of the fire sometimes in the very old days, festal virgins, he calls them. Although there was unfrozen air all around then, and he didn't really need one. He was just sitting that way now, though he got up quick to take a pail from me and bawl me out for loitering. He'd spotted my frozen helmet right off and then roused Ma. Oh, and she joined in on picking on me. She's always trying to get the load off her feelings. Pa explains. But he shut her up pretty fast. Sis let off a couple of silly squeals, too. Pa handled the pail of air in a twist of cloth. Now that it was inside the nest, you could really feel its coldness. Oh, it seemed to suck the heat out of everything. Even the flames cringed away from it as Pa put it down close by the fire. Yet, it's that glimmery white stuff in the pail that keeps us alive. It slowly melts, vanishes, and refreshes the nest and feeds the fire. The blankets keep it from escaping too fast. Pa'd like to steal the whole place, but can't. All the building's too earthquake-twisted, and besides, he has to leave the chimney open for smoke. Pa says air is tiny molecules that fly away like a flash if there isn't something to stop them. We have to watch sharp not to let the air run low. Pa always keeps a big reserve supply of it in buckets behind the first blankets, along with extra coal and cans of food and other things, such as pails of snow, to melt for water. We have to go way down to the bottom floor for that stuff, which is, it's a mean trip to get it through the door outside. You see, when the earth got cold, all the water in the air froze first and made a blanket 10 feet thick or so everywhere. And then down on top of that dropped the crystals of frozen air, making another white blanket 60 or 70 feet thick maybe. Of course, all parts of the air didn't freeze and snow down at the same time. First to drop out was the carbon dioxide. So when you're shoveling for water, you have to make sure you don't get too high and get any of that stuff mixed in. For it puts you to sleep. Maybe for good. And make the fire go out. Next, there's the nitrogen, which doesn't count for one way or the other, though it's the biggest part of the blanket. And on top of that, and easy to get at, which is like for us, there's oxygen that keeps us alive. Pa says that we live better than kings ever did, breathing pure oxygen. Well, they didn't have to, burn it over a fire, so maybe the kings are living better. But we were used to it and didn't notice. Finally, at the very top, there's a slick of liquid helium. That must be fun, make your voice all high, can have a little party, which is funny stuff. I'm already calling it out. All of these gases and neat separate layers, like puffy, cafe. Pa laughingly says, whatever that is. I was bursting to tell them all about what I've seen. As soon as I ducked out of my helmet, and while I was still climbing out of my suit, I cut loose. Right away, Ma got nervous and began making eyes at the entry slit in the blankets and wringing her hands together. The hand where she'd lost 3 fingers from frostbite inside the good one, as usual, and I could tell that Pa was annoyed at me, scaring her, and wanted to explain it all away quickly, yet he could see, I wasn't fooling. And you watched this light for some time, son? He asked when I finished. I hadn't said anything about first thinking it when I was a young lady's face. Somehow that part embarrassed me. Long enough for it to pass 5 windows and go to the next floor. And it didn't look like stray electricity or crawling liquid or starlight focused on a growing crystal, or anything like that. You was just making up those ideas. Odd things happen in a world that's about as cold as can be. Just when you think matter would be frozen dead, it takes on a strange new life. A slimy stuff comes crawling toward the nest, just like an animal snuffing for heat. That's liquid helium. That must be fun. The fun's coming to you. And once when I was little, a bolt of lightning, not even Pa could figure out where that came from, hit nearby steeple and crawled up and down it for weeks, till the glow finally died. Not like anything I ever saw, I told him. He stood for a moment, frowning. Then, I'll go out with you, and you, show it to me, he said. Ma raised a howl at the idea of being left alone, and Sis joined in too, but Pa quieted them. We started climbing into our outside clothes, mine having been warmed by the fire. Pa made them. They have plastic headpieces that were once big double-duty transparent food cans, but they keep heat and air in and can replace the air for a little while. Long enough for our trips for water and coal and food and so on. Ma started moaning again. I've always known there was something outside there waiting to get us, and I've felt it for years, something that's part of the cold and hates all warmth and wants to destroy the nest. It's been watching us all this time, and now it's coming after us, and I'll get you and then come for me. Don't go, Harry. Pa had everything on but his helmet, and he knelt by the fireplace and reached in and shook the long metal rod that goes up to the chimney and knocks off the ice that keeps trying to clog it. Once a week, he goes up on the roof to check if it's all working all right. That's our worst trip, and Pa won't let me make it alone. Sis, Pa said quietly, come watch the fire. Keep an eye on the air, too. If it gets too low or doesn't seem to be boiling fast enough, fetch another bucket from behind the blanket. But mind your hands. Use the cloth to pick up the bucket. Sis quit helping Ma be frightened and came over and did as she was told. Ma quieted down pretty suddenly, and her eyes were still kind of wild as she watched Pa fix on his helmet tight and pick up the pail, and the two of us go out. Pa led the way, and I took hold of his belt. It's a funny thing. I'm not afraid to go by myself, but when Pa's along, I always want to hold on to him. Yeah, habit, I guess. And then there's no denying it this time. I was a bit scared. You see, it's this way. We know that everything is dead out there. Pa heard the last radio voices fade away years ago, and had seen some of the last folks die who weren't as lucky or well protected as us. So, well, we knew that there was something groping around out there. Could be anything human or friendly. Besides that, there's a feeling that comes with it that's always night. Cold night. Pa says there used to be some of that feeling even in the old days. But then every morning the sun would come and chase it away. And I have to take his word for that, not ever remembering the sun as being anything more than a big star. You see, I hadn't been born when the dark star snatched us away from the sun. And by now it's dragged us out beyond the orbit of the planet Pluto, Pa says, taking us out farther all the time. And I found myself wondering whether there might be some thing on the dark star that wanted us, and if that's why it had captured the Earth. Just then, we came to the end of the corridor, and I followed Pa out to the balcony. Oh, I don't know what the city looked like in the old days, but now it's beautiful. The starlight lets you see it pretty well. Oh, there's quite a bit of light in those steady points, speckling the blackness above. Pa says the stars used to twinkle once, but that was before there was air. Oh, we're on a hill, and the shimmery plain drops away from us and then flattens out and cuts up into neat squares at the troughs that used to be streets. I sometimes make my mashed potatoes look like that, before I pour it on the gravy. Yeah, some taller buildings push up out of the feathery plain, topped by rounded caps of air crystals, like the fur hood Ma wears, only, I don't know, wider. Oh, on those buildings you can see the dark squares of the windows, underlined by white dashes of air crystals. Some of them on a slant, for many of the buildings are pretty badly twisted by the quakes and all the rest that happened. And when the dark star captured the Earth, here and there a few icicles hang, water icicles, from the first days of the cold. Other icicles of frozen air that melted on the roofs and dripped and froze again. Sometimes one of those icicles will catch the light of a star and send it to you so that brightly you think the star had swooped into the city. Well, that was one of the things Pa had been thinking when I told him about the light, but I had thought of it myself first and known it wasn't so. Well, he touched his helmet to mine so that we could talk easier, and he asked me to point out the windows to him. There wasn't any light moving around inside them now or anywhere else, and to my surprise, Pa didn't bawl me out or tell me that I'd been seeing things. He looked all around quite a while after filling his pail, and just as we were going inside, he whipped around without warning, as if to take some peeping thing off guard. Oh, I could feel it too. The old peace was gone, and there was something lurking out there, watching, waiting, getting ready. Inside, he said to me, touching helmets, if you see anything like that again, son, don't tell the others. Your ma's sort of, nervous these days, and we owe her all the feeling of safety we can give her. Once, burp, it was when your sister was born. Oh, I was ready to give up and die, but your mother kept me trying. Another time, she kept the fire going a whole week all by herself. When I was sick, nursed me and took care of you, too. You know that game we sometimes play, sitting in a square in the nest, tossing a ball around? Courage is like a ball, son. Oh, it's like the sex talk, except about courage. A person can hold on to it only so long, and then he's got to toss it to somebody else. When it's tossed your way, you got to catch it and hold it tight, and hope there'll be someone else to toss it to when you're tired of being brave. His talking to me that way made me feel grown up and good, but it didn't wipe away the thing outside from the back of my mind or the fact that Pa took it seriously. It's hard to hide your feelings about such a thing, and when we got back into the nest and took off our outside clothes, Pa laughed all about it and told them it was nothing and kidded me for having such an imagination, but his words fell flat. Oh, he didn't convince Ma and Sis any more than he did me. It looked for a minute like we were all fumbling the courage ball. And yes, keep that analogy going. Something had to be done. And almost before I knew it, what I was going to say, I heard myself asking Pa to tell us about the old days and how it all happened. He sometimes didn't mind telling the story, and Sis and I were sure to listen to it, and he got my idea. So we were all settled around the fire in a wink. Bob pushed up some cans to thaw for supper, and Pa began. Before he did, though, I noticed him casually get a hammer from the shelf and lay it down beside him, the best weapon. I have a lot to teach you about weaponry. When you watch movies, there's a lot of lies that are told to you. One, you watch a movie like Columbo or something, and somebody chokes someone. And after like 30 seconds, they just kind of collapse, and then the people slap their hands together and go, aha, I murdered them. Burp. Asked my nurse wife. She goes, no, it takes like 20 minutes to a half hour to choke someone out. Make sure they never come back again, that they're dead. It takes a long time to choke someone. Same goes for knives. Knives, you stab someone, they don't just fall down on the ground, they're dead. No, they last for a real, I'm burping like crazy. They last for a real long time. You stab someone, you got to keep stabbing and stabbing. That's the reason why if you ever like read a news article or whatever, or see something on the news about like someone got stabbed to death, it's always like they were stabbed 70 times. You have to sit there and stab someone for a long time. So when it comes to something like home protection, which is what this man is doing right now, there's a point to what I'm saying. The home protection, because he knows there's somebody out there. He knows that light isn't just some, I keep talking about stars reflecting off of things, but he knows it's not true. So he knows someone's out there, and he picked the best weapon next to a gun. If you got a gun for home protection, that's probably the best weapon. You shoot someone, they just fall over. But he got a hammer, because the thing is, if someone's coming at you and you smack them in the head with a hammer, they just fall over and they're done. They're knocked out. They're concussed. They can't think straight. So the hammer, if you're ever looking for like, I heard a noise downstairs. Because if you're like me, when I was younger in my first house, I'd hear a noise in the basement, and then I'd get a dumb baseball bat that's like aluminum, so it's hollow in the middle. And then I go downstairs and I look around. I'm like, okay, everything checks out. And I go back upstairs and I go to bed. Looking back on it, don't go downstairs. If someone's breaking into your home, don't confront them. If you think someone's actually for real in your home, just call 911. Or, and then just sit in your room, hopefully with a hammer, so that if anyone comes through the door, you can bonk them on the head and they'll fall down. Also, just get a gun. I mean, I'm not a gun. I don't own a gun. I'm not a gun guy. I'm probably not going to own a gun ever at any point. I don't know. My dad's got a lot of guns. Maybe he'll give me one day, and then what do I do with it? Stick it in my car. I don't know. Where do you put a gun? Where do you put a gun where no one gets at it? Do you bury it? I don't know. But anyways, with that, if you're going to have home protection, for the love of God, stay in your room and just get a hammer. Okay, hammer, lay it down beside him. It was the same old story as always. I think I can recite the main thread of it in my sleep, though Pa always puts in a new detail or two and keeps improving in its spots. He told us of how Earth had been swinging around the sun, ever so steadily and warm, and people on it fixing to make money and wars, and have a good time, and get power, and treat each other right or wrong, when, without warning, there comes a charging out of space, this dead star, this burned out sun, and upsets everything. I find it hard to believe in the way those people felt any more than I could believe in the swarming number of them. Imagine people getting ready for the horrible sort of war they were cooking up, wanting it even, or at least wishing it were over, so as to end their nervousness, as if all folks didn't have to hang together at the pool, every bit of warmth just to keep alive. And how can they have hope to end danger any more than they can hope to end the cold? Sometimes I think Pa exaggerates. It makes things out too black. He's cross with us once in a while, and he's probably cross with all these folks still. Some of the things I read in the old magazines sound pretty wild, so he might be right. Well, with that, why don't we take a little break? Why don't we get out of this room, this stuffy old library, where you put your feet up to relax on my luggage, which is very frustrating because you shouldn't be here. I should be sleeping right now because I just came off a long flight. But nope, you're a jerk. So I'm going to drag you down to the basement where I'm going to tell you about the latest upcoming books from Penguin Random House while I play the guitar at you. I'll see you down there. Oh, there you are. I've been waiting down here this whole time. What did you do? Did you go and take a pee first? Well, you're here now, and I'm going to tell you about the latest upcoming fun book from Penguin Random House. This fun book, it's called The Power of Fun. How to Feel Alive Again by Catherine Price. Category, wellness and business. Those go hand in hand. About the power of fun. If you're not having fun, you're not fully living. The author of How to Break Up With Your Phone. Oh, that sounds pretty frickin' annoying. I imagine the author, sent back in time 20 years, is probably the kind of person that says, oh yeah, no, I own a TV, but I keep it in the closet. I only pull it out when we have guests over. Guests that just have to watch TV. But now they got a book about how to break up with your iPhone. In case that, far from being frivolous, fun is actually critical to our well-being and shows us how to have more of it. Fun is critical to our well-being. Oh my God, are you claiming to be a scientist? Is that the best you've got? This delightful book just might be what we need to start flourishing, says #1 New York Times bestselling author Adam Grant. I think these people at Penguin Random House, if you publish a book at Penguin Random House, you got to spend the next 5 years of your career whoring yourself out to other lesser books. We got to be like, fun's important. You should read this, says #1 New York Times bestselling author Adam Grant, journalist and screen life balance expert. Catherine Price argues persuasively that our always-on tech-addicted lifestyles have led us to obsess over intangible concepts, such as happiness, while obscuring the fact that real happiness lies in the everyday experience of fun. Oh, we often think of fun as indulgent, even immature and selfish. No, we don't. Everyone tries to have fun. This person's trying to make a career out of something that isn't a thing. We already do it. That's part of the reason why we're on our phones, because unfortunately for Catherine Price, phones are fun. Obscuring the fact that real happiness lies in every experience. Well, we often think of fun as indulgent, immature, and selfish. We claimed to not have time for it. Bullshit. Even as we find hours a day for what Price calls fake fun. Binging on television. I'm sorry, but television's fun. Doom scrolling the news. Turns out doom scrolling is made to give you endorphins. It turns out it's fun. Or posting photos on social media. Oh my God, they're posting photos on social media. All in the hopes of filling some sort of emptiness we feel inside. In this follow-up to her hit book, How to Break Up With Your Phone, Price makes the case that true fun, oh good, she defines it, which she defines as the magical confluence of playfulness, connection, and flow. Oh God, I hate it when people do the business term flow. It basically just means like you're getting your work done. You're in a groove, but they've defined it as flow. So apparently fun is playfulness, connection, and flow will give us the fulfillment we so desperately seek. If you use true fun as your compass, well, you'll be happier and healthier. Oh, you'll be more productive, less resentful, less stressed, and you'll have more energy. You'll find community and a sense of community and a sense of purpose. You will stop languishing and start flourishing. Best of all, you'll enjoy the process. Of what? Like, what does she want you to do? Just go outside? Weaving together scientific research and personal experience. Oh, cool. That always works out. Price reveals the surprising mental, physical, and cognitive benefits of fun. Oh, my God. Are there cognitive benefits to fun? Mind-blowing. This person's a revolutionary and offers a practical, personalized plan for how we can achieve better screen life balance and attract more fun into our daily lives without feeling overwhelmed. I hate this person. Groundbreaking, eye-opening, and packed with useful advice. The power of fun won't just change the way you think about fun. It'll bring you back to life. That's The Power of Fun by Catherine. I should just write a book about the power of sitting. Turns out sitting has cognitive benefits that you've never considered before. Try to get away from your Pelotons. Figure out a Peloton life balance and just sit more often. Turns out resting your body has health benefits too. I hate this. The Power of Fun, How to Feel Alive Again by Catherine Price. Category wellness, of course, business. You get a paperback for $18.99. Coming January 2nd. Coming at you. January 2nd, 2024. You get it from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop.org, Hudson Booksellers, Powell's, Target, and you know that someone that writes a book so useless and so it's like being a life coach. Like you are not adding anything to anyone's life whatsoever, but you took the time to write this to try and make money off of it. And here you are. You finally made it when you are on the hollowed walls of Walmart. Well, now I'm just angry. Why don't we go back upstairs and finish the story about people that can't breathe? Well, there you go, once you get yourself settled in. Boy, that made me angry. Just people writing a crap book to make money. Let's hope this story turns out better. The Dark Star, as Pa went on telling it, rushed in pretty fast, and there wasn't much time to get ready. Well, at the beginning, they tried to keep it a secret from most people, but then the truth came out. Oh, what with the earthquakes and the floods. Imagine oceans of unfrozen water. And people seeing stars blotted out by something on a clear night. First off, they thought it would hit the sun. Then they thought it would hit the earth. There was even the start of a rush to get to a place called China, because people thought the star would hit on the other side. But when they found it wasn't going to hit either side, but it was going to move and come very close to the Earth. And most of the other planets were on the other side of the sun and didn't get involved. The sun and the newcomer fought over the Earth for a little while, pulling it this way and that, like two dogs growling over a bone. Pa described it this time, and then the newcomer won and carried us off. The sun got a consolation prize, though. At the last minute, he managed to hold on to the moon. That was the time of the monster earthquakes and floods. 20 times worse than anything before. Oh, it was also the time of the big jerk, his pa calls it. Yeah, when all Earth got yanked suddenly, and his pa has done to me once or twice, grabbed me by the collar to do it, and when I've been sitting too far from the fire. You see, the Dark Star was going through space faster than the sun, and in the opposite direction, and it had to wrench the world considerably in order to take it away. The big jerk didn't last long. I was over as soon as the Earth was settled down to its new orbit around the Dark Star, but it was pretty terrible while it lasted. Pa says that all sorts of cliffs, buildings toppled, oceans slopped over, swamps and sandy deserts gave great sliding surges that buried nearby lands. Earth was almost jerked out of its atmosphere blanket, and then the air got so thin in spots that people keeled over and fainted. Though, of course, at the same time, they were getting knocked down by the big jerk. Maybe their bones broke or skulls cracked. We've also often asked Pa how people acted during that time, whether they were scared or brave or crazy, or stunned, or all four. But he's sort of a leery on the subject, and he was again tonight. He says he was mostly too busy to notice. You see, Pa and some scientist friends of his had figured out what part was going to happen. They'd know we'd be getting captured and our air would freeze, and they'd been working like mad to fix up a place with airtight walls and doors, and insulation against the cold, and big supplies of food, and fuel, and water, and bottled air. The place got smashed in the last earthquakes, and all Pa's friends were killed then in the big jerk. So he had to start over and throw the nest together quick without any advantages. Just using any stuff that he could find laying around to get his hands on. I guess he's telling pretty much the truth when he says he didn't have any time to keep an eye on how other folks behaved, either then or in the big freeze that followed. Followed very quick, both because the Dark Star was pulling us away very fast and because Earth's rotation had been slowed in the tug-o-war, so that the nights were 10 old nights long. Still, I've got an idea of some of the things that happen from the frozen folk I've seen. A few of them in other rooms in our buildings, others clustered around furnaces in the basements where they go for coal. In one of the rooms, an old man sits stiff in his chair with an arm and a leg in splints. In another, a man and a woman are huddled together in a bed with heaps of covers over them. You can just see their heads peeking out, close together. In another, beautiful young lady is sitting with a pile of wraps huddled around her, looking hopefully toward the door, as if waiting for someone who never came back with warmth and food. Oh, they're all still and stiff as statues, of course, but just like life. Pa showed them once to me in quick winks with his flashlight when he still had a fair supply of batteries and he could afford to waste a little light. They scared me pretty bad and made my heart pound, especially the young lady. Always got a thing with dead young ladies. Now, with Pa telling his story for the umpteenth time, to take our minds off another scare, I got to thinking the frozen folk again. All of a sudden, I got an idea that scared me worse than anything yet. You see, I just remembered the face I thought I'd seen in the window. I'd forgotten about that on the account of trying to hide from the others. What, I asked myself, if the frozen folk were coming to life? What if they were like the liquid helium that got a new lease on life, started crawling toward the heat just when you thought a molecule's out to freeze and solve forever? Oh, or like the electricity that moves endlessly when it's just about as cold as that? Or what if the ever-growing cold, with the temperature creeping down the last few degrees to the last zero, had mysteriously wakened the frozen folk to life? Not warm-blooded life, but something icy and horrible. That was a worse idea than the one about something coming down from the dark star to get us. Or maybe, I thought, both sides might be true. Something coming down from the dark star, making the frozen folk move, using them to do its work. Oh, that would fit with both things I'd seen, the beautiful young lady and the moving star-like light. The frozen folk with minds from the dark star behind their unwinking eyes, creeping, crawling, snuffing their way, following the heat to the nest. And I tell you, that thought gave me a very bad turn. And I wanted very badly to tell the others my fears. But I remembered what Pa had said and clenched my teeth and didn't speak. We were all sitting very still. Even the fire was burning silently. And there was just the sound of Pa's voice. And the clocks. And then, from beyond the blankets, I thought I heard a tiny noise. My skin tightened all over me. Pa was telling about the early years in the nest and had come to the place where he philosophizes. So I asked myself then, he said, what's the use of going on? What's the use of dragging it out for a few years? Why prolong a doomed existence of hard work and cold loneliness? The human race is done. The Earth's done. Why not give up? I asked myself, and all of a sudden I got the answer. Again, I heard the noise, louder this time, a kind of uncertain, shuffling tread coming closer. Oh, I couldn't breathe. Life's always been a business of working hard and fighting the cold. Pa was saying, the Earth's always been a lonely place, millions of miles from the next planet, and no matter how long the human race might have lived, the end would have come tonight. Those things don't matter. What matters is that life is good. It has a lovely texture, some rich cloth or fur, or the petals of flowers. You've seen pictures of those, but I can't describe how they feel. Or the fire's glow, huh? Oh, it makes everything else worthwhile. And that's as true for the last man as the first. Still the steps kept shuffling closer. It seemed to me that the inmost blanket trembled and bulged a little, just as if they were burrowed into my imagination. I kept seeing those peering, frozen eyes. So right then and there, Pa went on, and now I could tell that he heard the steps too, and he was talking so loud that maybe we wouldn't hear him. Right then and there, I told myself that I was going on as if we had all eternity ahead of us. I'd have children, teach them all I could, and I'd get them to read books, and I'd plan for the future, try and enlarge and seal the nest. And I'd do what I could to keep everything beautiful and growing. I'd keep alive my feeling of wonder even at the cold and dark of the distant stars. But then the blanket actually did move and lift. And there was a bright light somewhere behind it. Pa's voice stopped and his eyes turned to the widening slit, and his hand went out and touched it and gripped the handle of the hammer beside him. Good weapon choice. That's a great weapon choice. If you can't have a gun, go for a hammer. In through the blankets stepped the beautiful young lady. Oh, she stood there looking at us in the strangest way. Oh, and she carried something bright and unwinking in her hand. And the two other faces peered over her shoulders. Men's faces, oh, that's too bad, white and staring. Well, my heart couldn't have been stopped for more than 4 or 5 beats before I realized she was wearing a suit and helmet like Pa's homemade ones, only fancier. And that the men were, too. And that the frozen folks certainly wouldn't be wearing those. Also, I noticed that the bright thing in her hand was just a kind of flashlight. The silence kept on while I swallowed hard a couple times. And after that, there were all sorts of jabbering and commotion. Someone's going to use that hammer. Oh, they were simply people, you see. We hadn't been the only ones to survive. We just thought so, for natural enough reasons. Oh, these 3 people had survived, and quite a few others with them. And when we found out how they survived, oh, Pa let out the biggest whoop of joy. They were from Los Alamos, and they were getting their heat and power from atomic energy, just using the uranium and plutonium intended for bombs, and they had enough to go on for thousands of years. Oh, they had a regular little airtight city, yeah, with the airlocks and all, and they even generated electric light, and grew plants, and animals by it. Oh, and at this, Pa let out a second whoop, waking Ma from her faint. But if we were flabbergasted at them, they were double flabbergasted at us. One of the men kept saying, "But it's impossible, I tell you. You can't maintain an air supply without hermetic sealing. It's simply impossible." That was after he had got his helmet off and was using our air. Meanwhile, the young lady kept looking around at us as if we were saints, telling us we'd done something amazing. And suddenly she broke down and just cried. Oh, they've been scouting around for survivors, and they never expected to find any in a place like this. They had rocket ships at Los Alamos and plenty of chemical fuel. As for liquid oxygen, all you had to do was go out and shovel the air blanket at the top level. So after they had gotten things going smoothly at Los Alamos, which had taken years, they decided to make some trips to likely places where there might be other survivors. No good trying long-distance radio signals, of course, since there was no atmosphere to carry them around the curve of the Earth. Well, they found other colonies at Aragon and Brookhaven, and all the way around the world to Harwell and Tanatuva. Don't know where that is. Let's look up where Tanatuva is. Search in Wikipedia. The Tuvan People's Republic, or TPR, known as the Tanatuva People's Republic until 1926, was a partially recognized state that existed between 1921 and 1944. It was formerly a socialist republic. Where? Located in Tuva. Covered the same territory, Northwest Mongolia. Oh, okay, there we go. It was previous. Okay, all right. Well, that's a long distance. And now they've been giving our city a look. Not really expecting to find anything, but they had an instrument that noticed the faintest heat waves and had told them there was something warm down here. So they landed to investigate. Of course, well, we hadn't heard them land, since there's no air to carry the sound, and they had to investigate around quite a while before finding us. Their instruments had given them a wrong steer, and they wasted some time in the building across the street. By now, all 5 adults were talking like 60. Pa was demonstrating to the men how he worked the fire to get rid of the ice in the chimney and all that. Ma had perked up wonderfully, was showing the young lady her cooking and sewing stuff, and even asked about how the women dressed in Los Alamos. Oh, of course, because she's a woman. Women care about dresses. You got nice clothes? Huh? I'm a woman from the 1950s or whenever he wrote this. You got high heels? You got high heels in Los Alamos? The strangers marveled at everything and praised it to the skies. I could almost tell from the way they wrinkled their noses that they found the nest a bit smelly. But they never mentioned it at all and just asked bushels of questions. In fact, there was so much talking excitement that Pa forgot about things, and it wasn't until they were all getting groggy that he looked and found the air had all boiled away at the pail. I got another bucket of air quick from behind the blankets. Of course, it started them all laughing and jabbering again. We almost died. And we were just so busy talking we weren't paying attention to living. And the newcomers even got a little drunk. They weren't used to so much oxygen. Funny thing, though, I didn't do much talking at all. And Sis hung on to Ma all the time and hid her face when anybody looked at her. I felt pretty uncomfortable and disturbed myself, and even about the young lady, glimpsing her outside there. I had all sorts of mushy thoughts. But now, because, he's a young man and he's horny. That's why he started trying to compare this woman to other women he knows, which is very disturbing. But now I was just embarrassed and scared of her, even though she was trying to be as nice as anything to me. I sort of wish they'd all quit crowding the nest, just let us be alone and get our feelings straightened out. And when the newcomers began to talk about all going to Los Alamos, as if that were taken for granted, I could see that something of the same feeling struck Pa and Ma, too. Pa got very silent all of a sudden, and Ma kept telling the young lady, "Oh, but I wouldn't know how to act," because she doesn't have high-heeled shoes. "And I haven't any clothes." Yeah, she wants those shoes. Yeah, strangers were all puzzled like anything at first, but then they got the idea, as Pa kept saying, "It just doesn't seem right to let this fire go out." Well, the strangers are gone. But they're coming back. It hasn't been decided yet just what will happen. Maybe the nest will be kept up for what one of the strangers called a survival school. Or maybe we'll join the pioneers who are going to try to establish a new colony at the uranium mines of the Great Slave Lake. Slave Lake? Or in the Congo. Of course, now that these strangers are gone, I've been thinking a lot about Los Alamos and those other tremendous colonies, and I have a hankering to see them for myself. Oh, you ask me, Pa wants to see him too. Oh, he's been getting pretty thoughtful, watching Ma and Sis perk up. It's different now that we know others are alive, he explains to me. Your mother doesn't feel so hopeless anymore. Neither do I, for that matter, not having to carry a whole responsibility for keeping the human race going, so to speak. It scares a person. Well, I looked around the blanket walls, and the fire, and the pails of air boiling away, and Ma and Sis sleeping in the warmth and the flickering light. It's not going to be easy to leave the nest, I said, wanting to cry, kind of. It's so small, there's just the four of us, and I get scared at the idea of big places and lots of strangers. He nodded and put another piece of coal in the fire, and then he looked at the little pile and grinned suddenly and put a couple of handfuls on, just as if it was one of our birthdays or Christmas. "Oh, you'll quickly get over that feeling, son." We're going to get him drunk on oxygen. "The trouble with the world is that it kept getting smaller and smaller, till it ended with just the nest. Now it'll be good to have a real huge world again, the way it was in the beginning." I guess he's right. You think the beautiful young lady will wait for me till I grow up? Again with the horniness. Any sci-fi ever made, like before 2010, it's just people being horny. Don't get me started on Isaac Asimov. Wait for me to grow up. Oh, I'll be 20 in only 10 years. All right, well, with that, I have jet lag, and I'd love to go to bed. So why don't we get you down to the smoking room where we can have a cigarette, and I can tell you what the hell we just read. Now, well, there you are. Why don't you get yourself seated here in my smoking room? Enjoy yourself a Camel's cigarette while we discuss what the hell we just read. Yep. My wife put birds in here. I say it every time, but I have to. I have to give her credit. She put birds in the smoking room. So they all have like tiny little lung cancers sitting there chirping at me with their hoarse, old women who've been smoking for 50 years kind of chirps. What do we read? Well, I have to admit I've read this before, kind of. Back in the 90s, when I was out of high school, I got a job at a dry cleaner's where I had to press pants for 8 hours. Got to get up, got to be there at 7 in the morning, got to press those pants. The pants got to get done. So I got up and... but I would always go to the library afterwards, and I'd get audiobooks and stuff, just because I was constantly trying to find shit to listen to while I'm working away for 8 hours pressing pants. So, but one audiobook I listened to, and it was, I think, The Great Stone Face and also A Pail of Air, just like a weird cassette tape. And so I listened to that as I was getting ready, and I got so sucked into A Pail of Air that I was late for my job. For some reason, I thought A Pail of Air was like the best thing I ever listened to, but I forgot what the name of it was. And so I spent all these years like remembering how haunting it was. The idea of the young couple laying in bed with all the blankets on top of them, just seeing their heads and they're close together. So sad. The old man in the chair with the braces on, it was been frozen in time. The woman with all the wraps or whatever, and she's like waiting for someone to come through the door. I just remember that being really, really haunting. I thought that was a great story. I should try to figure out what the hell that is again. So I found it on Gutenberg.org and or Project Gutenberg. And so I found that and I was like, oh, shoot, that's the same story. I wonder if it's as good as I remember it. Because the worst part is, just like watching a movie or reading a book when you're really young and impressionable, and you think it's like the best thing you've ever seen, and you remember it being the best thing you've ever seen, and the scenes are inspiring, and you love it, and then you watch it again later as an old, fat adult with gas, and you have a burger problem, and then you watch it, or you listen to it, or you read it, and you're just like, oh, yeah, it's not as good as I remember at all. That scene was horseshit. Too bad I ruined it, because it was a scene that stuck in my mind, and it kind of had a certain kind of weight to it, kind of like an importance, like things in the world are important. I had this thing from a long time ago. It was fantastic. Well, I read it again, and it wasn't that bad. It actually wasn't bad. The scenes aren't as haunting as I remember them being, but again, I'm reading it for the second time. Burp. The story's a little more blunt, a little more short than I remember it being. I did want to take some time to look up. I'm sure the author took the time to do the science to find out if the Earth did go super cold, would our air, along with carbon monoxide and everything else, just turn into some kind of ice that you can scoop up? I don't know, because do other planets have that? I haven't looked into this. Mars is pretty cold, right? Most of the time? I don't know. That had oxygen at some point once, right? Because it looks like there's rivers. So is there like oxygen on the surface you can just scoop up and just like slurp it up? Oh, that's some good shit right there. Takes a little shot glass of oxygen. I don't know. I was going to look it up, but I want to go to bed. So I'm not going to look it up tonight. Maybe somebody can let me know. Yeah, this is actual real science. This could really happen. Or, no, it's horseshit by a guy just makes stuff up. But I don't know. Either way, it's a pretty good story. It wasn't as good as I remember it back in the dry cleaner days. But it's still pretty damn good. What do we learn? The power of hope. And don't forget to boil your oxygen. Well, with that, thanks for listening. And I think I'm going to try and read another short story to get me through the new year. Maybe, but then I'm doing Wuthering Heights, which is a really long book. So I have to mentally get prepared to be reading Wuthering Heights for like the next 6 months or something. I don't know what my plan is for this. It's a lot of goddamn reading. But my wife says I should read it, so I got to do that or else she's going to leave me. With that, thanks for listening, and I will see you next week. Well, it appears you found me in the part of the podcast I hate the most, where I tell you all about the places on the internet where you can find me. You can tell I hate this because of the sound effects making it sound like a stormy night in the drawing room of the damned. Now, there's that. Are you cool? I like cool people. It's the reason why I got involved in this business to begin with, just to meet cool people, not losers. So if you're cool, feel free to go over to my website, nuzzlehouse.com, which just points you to my link tree. Everything's on the link tree. Just go to the link tree if you want to see where I am. And of course, link tree has the dumbest URL in the world. linktr.ee/nuzzlehouse. It's the dumbest thing. If you go to nuzzlehouse.com, it's just going to reroute you over there after giving you some weird error about it not being secure. I hate it. I hate the internet. But if you go there, you get to hear some of the other stuff that I and my wife work on, like the Radio Mystery Theater show, where we try to recreate the same show that used to be on in the 70s, but they don't make any episodes anymore. So we make our own, and we just steal all their commercials. And also, just in the curious mind, we made a Christmas album. If you go to our link tree, you can see that we made a Christmas album. It's the first thing we did after getting married, which I think everyone should do when they get married, is start talking about the Christmas album they're going to make. And we're working on a new show where we give relationship advice by reading paranormal smut. And since I think you might be cool, you can always just email me directly, glenn.nuzzles@gmail.com. But don't email if you're a nerdling or a dork. Now, back to business. Can't believe I drank all of them already. There's got to be one left.